The day has finally arrived. The May Melee tournament is here. Like I do in any other week, I wanted to show you guys my predictions for some pregame hype. Plus, I'm sure some of you are probably curious as to what my takes are. With money and bonus wins on the line here, every participant is sure to give it their all. Playoffs will be here before you know it, so this is the chance for some of those struggling teams to get a well-needed boost to their overall record. There's something you guys should know before we get started though. Because there are a lot of games being played in North America, I'm going to be focusing more on the Asian tournament. The bracket is so much smaller over there, and everybody already has their opponents picked out, so it's going to be a lot easier to go into detail. With the American region, there are several outcomes that could play out. Other than this being a big bracket with just too many games to cover, you have to remember that we will have two separate rounds where teams are going to be picking their opponents. One or two false predictions could pretty much derail the entire bracket early on, which would make doing a super detailed prediction for every single game, well, you know, pointless. I'd rather stick to talking about the games that I already know are going to happen. Plus, this video would be ridiculously long if I fully covered 18 games. I have a hard enough time as it is staying under 20 minutes with 12 games being predicted. I hope you guys can understand, and I apologize if anybody is upset by this. Before we begin with the in-depth talk about the matches in Asia, let me show you guys what my North American bracket is looking like. As you can see, a lot of it is fairly standard. Let me briefly explain my thought process. So with Toronto versus Vancouver, it's pretty much a no-brainer to say that the Defiant win this. They may be a struggling team at all, but Vancouver has shown they still have a long way to go before they are ready to give anybody a good challenge. For the knockout round, it seems like the most logical pick for Paris to go with Toronto. I suppose you could argue Boston, but I firmly believe they'll stay away from them just because of that upset over the Gladiators last week. For the Reign, their pick is a bit more tricky. They've thoroughly beaten down all of their available options in the past, so they probably all feel pretty tempting to go with. In the end though, I say they go with Boston just because on paper they're the weakest team. From there, the Gladiators go with the Justice, and the Fuel get left with the Outlaws in the Battle of Texas rematch. All of the outcomes in this one are to be expected, with the exception of Houston versus Dallas, which is my big hot take for this tournament. I'm well aware that Dallas literally just beat Houston a few weeks ago, but this is a new Outlaws team. Hydration is at main tank. If any of you watched the exhibition match between these two the other day, you'll know that Dallas lost, and they used the tournament rule set for it and everything. They took it rather seriously, and I honestly believe this Houston team has a new mindset thanks to Hydration being their leader, and this new look lineup could end up throwing Dallas off guard. Another thing to note is that I really did not like the way Dallas played against Paris last week. I'm kind of concerned about their overall ability to find success in this tournament. I'm not expecting to be right about this prediction or anything, but I figured I should at least have one spicy take in here to make things a bit more interesting. Moving on to the quarterfinals, it's pretty much a no-brainer for the Shock to select Houston. If they want the easiest road to the finals possible, then this is the pick to make. And it goes without saying that I am expecting the Shock to advance to the semifinals with relative ease. The two-seeded Florida Mayhem will pick after that, and their pick is a tough one to make. Everybody left is pretty decent. It may be tempting to pick Paris after crushing them, but in my opinion that is too risky given the stakes of this tournament. And with the Reign sweeping them a while back, it's hard to envision them picking Atlanta either, so by default, that means they will get the Gladiators. With them losing to Boston last week, that will probably serve as extra incentive to choose them over anybody else. This game in particular is a tough call. The Gladiators can be a scary team to go up against, but the Mayhem right now look confident, and they likely have a chip on their shoulder since everybody is doubting them still for some reason. With the Gladiators looking unsure of themselves against Boston, I like the Mayhem's chances of moving on to the semis. Next up, it will be Philly's turn to choose, and there is no way they'd be crazy enough to play Paris again, so Atlanta all the way here for me. And given the circumstances of the Reign's performance against high-level competition, plus the Fusion's history of always beating them, going with Philly is obviously the best bet. And unfortunately for my Los Angeles Valiant, that means they are stuck with the Paris Eternal. While Los Angeles have done quite well as of late, Paris is out of their league in my opinion. Packington is a great coach, but the Paris coaching staff has done a phenomenal job this season. Their guys look so disciplined, and I really do expect head coach Rush to outplay Packington. Now on to the semifinals. In this round, I'm kind of anticipating the more talented teams to have the edge. While Paris and Florida could definitely go down swinging, San Francisco and Philadelphia are simply the better teams right now. There's no need to sugarcoat it. The grand finals is where it gets interesting though. though. Philly versus San Francisco. If this happens, I anticipate it to be an epic showdown. I very well do see a world where either one of them could win, too. It all comes down to what the meta is, as there are certain things that each have the edge over with. If we see double shield, or maybe super brawly comps, or heavy Mei comps, then the Shock very well could take home the first place prize. But if we see dive comps, lots of double hit skin, or maybe Sombra, then I lean more towards the Fusion. I was very unsure of who to pick in this, so I went with my gut and said the Philadelphia Fusion. Something tells me they want this more. Carpe and the boys are here to prove that this is their year. I have a few different reasons for picking Philly though, the first of which is Ana. Ana is arguably the strongest healer in the game, and Alarm outclasses Violet on her, so that could ultimately give the Fusion the advantage they need to pull ahead. My second reason for arguing Philly is Carpe. I'm ready for him to have a big day. I can feel it. I can see it happening. And lastly, from an overall standpoint, the Fusion have the versatility needed to more than match that of the Shocks. If they need a good Echo, then EQO comes in. Need a good Sigma for bunker comps? Fury is your guy. Pound for pound, the Fusion can handle the Shock. They have game-changing substitutions just as the Shock do. Their clutch factor plus the versatility leads me to believe they could squeeze out this win, which will ultimately prove they are the true #1 team in North America. Alrighty, with the North American region out of the way, let's talk about the Asian Games. Here's a quick overview of the initial bracket, and as a quick reminder, Shanghai picked London, New York chose Chengdu, and then the Spark were left with the Dynasty as a result. To start off Saturday morning, or I guess night depending on where you're from, we've got the Hangzhou Spark versus the Seoul Dynasty. Alright Seoul fans, I'll be straight up honest. I am not a fan of this team heading into this tournament. The inconsistency issues worry me greatly. This team should not be a 7 seed. They are way too talented to have slipped down this badly. But for some odd reason, anytime they have to play Echo, they completely forget how to play the game. Whenever they're forced into dive with Echo, they're one of the most uncoordinated teams in the league this year. They need so much practice, and I don't know if a week will prove to be enough time. If Seoul wants any chance, they need to find a way to adapt. If they are forced into playing Echo, I'd at the very least like for them to play double shield if at all possible, so their tanks are a bit more coordinated. Seoul tends to be a slow-paced team, so adjusting the tempo could do some good for them. That's a big what if though. Based off of what I've seen this year, Seoul likes to be meta slaves. I do not trust them unfortunately. It's sad too because when they're on their game, they're really hard to stop, but you have to remember that it's really random when they show us their peak, so the Spark are looking like the clear choice. Between them being superior on Dive, Echo, and Sombra, I have more confidence in the Spark. It doesn't even matter if they play Architect or not. No matter who they end up fielding, I've got the Spark taking the series 3 maps to 1. It's sad too because Hangzhou aren't even that much more consistent compared to their counterparts. It's more that the meta seems to better suit their style. With the Spark taking down Seoul, they'll advance to the semifinals where the top-seeded Charge will be awaiting them for their showdown on Sunday. The next game on the schedule, though, is the Accel versus the Hunters. Since the Hunters have every comfort pick at their disposal thanks to there being no hero bans, there's a possibility that they push New York more than we've seen in their previous meetings. And what's great is that the Hunters seem to be on the up-and-coming last week after they destroyed Seoul in what looked like an easy sweep. Their bizarre strategy of constantly swapping between Leave and Jinmu on Echo seemed to be finally working. While I am happy to see the Hunters making progress, and I really do like how they have Wrecking Ball and everything available to them, but this is a challenge they are simply not ready for. The NYXL have a date with Destiny. They need to get the revenge against Shanghai, so there is no way they are going to back down. And I mean, thinking about it from a compositional standpoint, with the exception of Wrecking Ball comms, they are literally better at everything. If Echo sees playtime, New York's going to be just fine. It took some experimenting, but they finally realized that Libero is a far more reliable option than Who Are You on that hero. With how scary he looked against the Spark, I fully trust in him to get the better of Leave and or Jinmu. And when you factor in his trustworthy partner Sabiobi, the NYXL DPS are in good shape to dominate. Another player I fully believe will dominate is Mono. If Winston Dive is played by both sides, then Among is going to be in for a world of pain. The Yada Chat still has a long way to go before he is ready to be considered a reliable Winston player, and if he plays Ball instead, that only gives the NYXL a bigger advantage in my opinion. Comfort pick or not, Wrecking Ball is not the answer. This should be an easy 3-0 for the NYXL. Besides being superior at literally every position, it's worth mentioning how the NYXL are far more consistent. The only time they lose is when they experiment like we saw at the Charge game, or when they play somebody who is genuinely at their skill level, and neither of those things are going to apply with the current situation, so I would be genuinely surprised if they choked this one away. The NYXL advance to the semifinals and await the winner of the next game. And that of course will be between the Shanghai Dragons and London Spitfire. I'm not gonna lie, with Shanghai having the first pick, I kind of figured they might choose the Hunters. They've had their number as of late, and in my opinion they would have stomped them for sure again. But then again, with them clean sweeping London during week 15, this choice makes a lot of sense too. However, London could be dangerous. After all, in that 3-0, they put up a decent fight. There's a possibility that Shanghai ends up regretting this decision, but I mean, in all likelihood, they probably won't. They wouldn't have picked London without good reason. Surely they have confidence that this is an opponent they can beat with relative ease. And honestly, that's what I believe is going to happen. They know how to play them. This is an opponent they are very familiar with. Their playstyle is fresh in their minds, making them the optimal opponent to select. They just have to hope the same doesn't apply for London. That's the one risk of making this decision. The Spitfire have proven to be fast learners this year. They might strike with more ferocity than Shanghai anticipated, but even then, that probably still won't be enough. I've got the Dragons winning 3-0. Coach Moon has come up with some nice strategies this year, and based on his history with the Valiant back in 2018, he knows very well how to bully a young team. When thinking about this matchup, it's worth considering how much more flexible the Dragons are too. Their DPS can thrive in any meta, and the Spitfire are still a bit unproven in that department. Glister I have full confidence in. He shows flashes of pure brilliance on a consistent basis, but their flex DPS are on and off in my opinion. My stance on this matchup will remain the same as last week. This is a mismatch between two teams at different levels. London is not quite ready for this yet. With the quarterfinals decided, the semis are now ready to commence. To start, the well-rested Guangzhou Charge play the Spark, and this might prove to be a really fun matchup. The Charge may be the top seed, but if the rumors are true, they are going to be playing without Nero. We already got a taste of what Guangzhou looks like when they play Eileen and Happy, and it ultimately led to them almost getting reverse swept. They looked kind of inconsistent, which is a little concerning to me. But Happy and Eileen could be a decent pair, don't get me wrong. I'm just a little worried that not having Nero is going to take its toll. Right from the beginning of the season, he's been their rock. He's been the consistent star flex player on that team. The Charge are going to miss him, I promise you that. The good news though is that they could definitely still beat the Spark even without him. It might come down to Architect if I'm going to be honest. If he plays and he looks comfortable on his new team, then that might spell trouble for Guangzhou. Not having Nero there to duel him could put them at a severe disadvantage, not to mention that the Spark are a deadly dive team in their own right. This is not going to be a walk in the park, and there is a serious chance their rivals outplay them. But you know what? I'm still leaning slightly more towards the Charge. Nero or not, their DPS are definitely talented, and this team has proven to be good at both dive and double shield. In my opinion, they are about even at dive with the Spark, and they have already proven to be better at double shield thanks to their match from around a month ago. Another place I really like the Charge at is flex support. While there's nothing wrong with Bebe, I very much prefer Shu over him. The Charge are going to use Shu and their superior tank play to win 3-2 in what I believe will be one of the closest games of the weekend. I'm not really sure what to expect here, but because the Charge have played so well lately, I feel like they're a slightly better choice to make. But who's going to be joining the Charge in the finals? Let's talk Shanghai versus NYXL, the long-anticipated rematch that we hopefully get. We've been looking forward to this one for a while, and in my opinion, it should be even closer than the previous time they played. As I said before, New York appears to be more sure of themselves now. Libero is going to be their Echo guy moving forward, and that might help counter both Fleta and or Ding depending on who's played. More than anything though, I will be looking at Lip versus Sabiobi. These last few weeks, Lip has been slightly off his game. His Sombra hasn't been having the same impact, which is a little concerning. That's not to say he's been awful or anything, just not what he's been in previous weeks. I have concerns that Sabiobi might genuinely outplay him on whatever they end up having to mirror in. This is a huge test for Lip. If he can step up and play clean Overwatch when his team desperately needs him to, then the Dragons definitely have a shot at this. It's tough to say what's going to happen in the end, but I believe in Lip. He's been too good this year to suddenly waver now of all times. He's ready for this, I just know he is. Regardless of the outcome, there's a good chance this game is amazing. I'd be shocked if it was a disappointment. But who do I go with here? Well, I'm going to say Shanghai wins it in 5 maps. There's 2 reasons for this. 1, the NYXL have yet to beat a top tier team. 2 of their losses are from missed opportunities against Philly and Shanghai. Why should I believe this time plays out any differently? New York needs to prove to me that they can do it because right now I don't trust them to pull it off. My other reason for picking the Dragons over the NYXL is that they're a bit more versatile in my opinion. They have shown me that they are better at more compositions. Double Shield Bunker in particular, I heavily favor them on. I've never loved Mono's Orisa, and the Dragons have the better Sigma as well, but don't sleep on Shanghai when it comes to Reinhardt or Dive either. Fearless has been on a rampage this year and has literally already proved himself against Mono, so why not predict him to have yet another amazing game? He's more than capable of pulling this off. Nothing against New York or anything, but I honestly do prefer the Dragons. In my opinion, they are the better team. With a clutch win over New York, the Dragons advanced to the finals against the Charge, and if I'm going to be honest, there's not much to talk about. In all likelihood, this will be a blowout in favor of the Dragons. Shanghai have beaten the Charge down every time they've played this year. No matter what the meta, Shanghai always have been miles ahead of them. And keep in mind that the Charge were at full power back then too. If they're down 2 players due to visas expiring, their chances should in theory be even worse. I am not expecting this to be a very entertaining grand finals. If anything, it'll be more boring than a normal match between these two because the Dragons have to win an extra game just to end the thing. If I think it's going to take all they have to beat the Spark, then it goes without saying that I believe the Charge will yet again get beat up by the Shanghai Dragons. In a disappointing grand finals, I say the Dragons get the 3 bonus win prize as they go on to win 4-1. Given the history, the coaching difference, and the skill gap, this is heavily Dragons favored. I hope that the Charge end up putting up a better fight than I anticipate them to, but I really don't have a lot of faith unfortunately. Anyway, those are my predictions for the Asian region. Here's a look at my bracket as a whole. There's a lot less going on in this one compared to North America obviously, but I'm sure we'll still get a good game or two throughout the event. With that said, that's everything I've got for you guys today, really. That's how I see the North American and Asian May Melee tournaments going. I'm expecting to get a lot of things wrong like I usually do with these types of things, but who knows? Maybe my luck is finally going to start to turn around this time. Now I'm interested in hearing from you guys though. What are your predictions for these 2 tournaments? Let me know down in the comment section, and if you enjoyed the video, it would mean a lot if you could hit the like button and subscribe as it helps me out so much. While you're at it, consider further supporting me by following me on Twitter at ATP Overwatch, joining my Discord server through the invite link in the description, or becoming a channel member. And as always, thanks so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.